Hola Ippo fans, chapter 1318 has officially dropped on our heads with 18 full pages of explanation, fighting, and greatness. Now, the previous chapter kind of left us on a cliffhanger with Takamura snapping back at Ippo and the crew for having a little bit too much fun while they were getting ready for sparring. And what it turns out is it has been officially confirmed that while Ippo was in Mexico, Takamura is going to be getting his next bout, and it will be the super middleweight bout that he's been waiting for. He's climbing up the ladder as we go, and Ippo says, finally, this is a third-class victory. Where is it going to be held? I'm used to being anywhere in the world, so let's travel if we have to travel. However, Yagi says that the host country will be Japan because that was one of the conditions for Takamura, which to me is a signal for some things that are really going to be important in the future and something that we're going to talk a little bit about later on in the video. But Ippo kind of thinks to himself, that is right. Takamura-san was obsessed with getting it here in Japan for some reason. And Yagi kind of goes, I thought the negotiations would be difficult. However, they were quick and they said yes. And Yagi pulls out a picture and a profile of the WBC champion, Keith Dragon. Okay, so we've noticed that there's a theme with Takamura's opponents that he fights animals more and more and more. You know, he's had bison, he has had Brian Hawk, he has had eagle, he has had a ton of different animals coming in front of him. However, this is the very first mythical beast that we have come across. Now, this could be just reading into it too much, but this may potentially be the next hardest fight that he has had since, well, Eagle crossed his paths. And I'm pretty pumped about that. We get to see a few interesting facts about Keith Dragon. One is that he has 25 fights, 24 wins in one tie. Now, that is not something that we have seen lately in the manga. In fact, I don't think we've really ever seen it. However, boxing can come to a tie when you're going up against your opponent. Now, I think that could be an interesting way to kind of take a look at this. But ties aren't really that important right now. They're always an interesting stat, but they're just something to kind of put on the back burner. We find out that Keith Dragon, like many of the other heavier weight boxers, is American. He is right-handed, meaning that he fights orthodox, so his left hand is in front, right hand is probably in the back. He is the same height as Takamura, however, his reach is slightly longer. And they seem to think that he's going to be a boxer fighter, i.e. using his feet to move around the ring, unlike Ippo. Now, there are not too many surprises going on here. Takamura seems to be fighting boxer types a lot more, and especially since we're getting into the 2000s era of boxing, we're going to see that transition out of the infighters into these, outboxing kind of mentality. In fact, that's something that's been a little bit of a change in translation. If you read the older stuff of Hajime no Ippo, the older chapters really do not say brawler versus boxer. It's infighter versus outfighter. And, that could just be a change in terminology. That's not something that I've really researched in the past, but it's an interesting thing to note. Now, we do get a breakdown on just some of his hobbies and unique skills, because in his biography, it includes mahjong as a very important thing to him, a very important hobby. Now, I don't know too much about mahjong, but it seems that a few of the people understand how to play it in the manga. I'm not going to bother explaining it. However, I get the feeling that since we're kind of taking a look at it in this point of view, I think we're going to get to start to see that Keith Dragon's mentality is going to be very chess-like, very strategic when it comes to doing different moves against Takamura. Again, he likes mahjong, and I know that it's a strategy game. I'm just not sure how involved strategy actually is, but I've heard that it's more complicated than chess. So we could see a really interesting fight where Takamura just turns off his brain, goes full instinct, full monster, and absolutely blows Dragon out of the water. Now, I would like it to be a pretty good fight for a little while Takamura and Dragon go back and forth, trading punches, lefts, rights, ducks, dodge, dips, dives, dodges, and weaves. And I know that I said dodges twice, but that's how important it is to this game. But I'd really be interested to see how these two really kind of go about it. And then we start to see this analytical side be overpowered by a domination of instinct, which is something that Takamura has. We've already seen him fall back on the techniques that the coach has given him. And while that was really cool, we've also seen him snap, and both sides of Takamura are really interesting. But, you know, I'm just kind of reaching here. I'm really excited for this super middleweight bout. I'm not exactly sure what weight class that is, but I know that I'm looking forward to it. So they kind of explain that Dragon learned mahjong from a Japanese businessman, that he was the king of the skyscraper, and we transition to Keith saying, there's a lot of unreasonable things in the world. Gambling, boxing, life. You can't always win by being good at it. I'm in love with it. But the goddess of luck, right? And Takamura says, the guy is strong. And Takamura is starting to acknowledge what strength is. However, we get to this ending verb of his, and it's, Kimura says, you can't make up the power gap with luck. Takamura responds with, then I ask you, there is a person in this world who will never become a world champion. Who is that person? Now, it feels like he's trying to say something serious, but we know that he's going to call out Aoki and Kimura more than likely, or there's going to be a much more deep lesson for Ippo kind of shoved in there just a little bit, but I could be very inherently wrong. Now, at the very start of this chapter, we talked about why it was so important for Takamura to have these fights in Japan, and it comes down to the coach. Kamigawa is, I believe, 83 years old by this time in the manga. He is still catching the mitts for Takamura. He is fighting and fighting and fighting to stay alive, to stay around, and traveling is not good on an older gentleman. Let me be completely frank here. It would not have been a great thing for Kamigawa to travel. It would have put him at risk. So Takamura is wanting to bring the belts to Japan, so the old man has a much higher likelihood of seeing them. And we are seeing a great trend on the Hajime no Ippo subreddit, where everyone is talking about the death of Kamigawa, and it's starting to become kind of a meme. And while I'm not necessarily okay with that, I do think that we're starting to see Kamigawa being treated with kid gloves. And there's going to be a point where I don't think he's going to die, but he is going to have to retire from holding the gloves for both Ippo and Takamura, and somebody else is going to have to pick them up and to help train them in that aspect. But that's a whole nother story. Now, for the super middleweight belt taking that Takamura has right in front of him, I'm very, very excited to see this. It means that he's going to keep climbing and climbing and getting stronger. He's getting closer to his natural weight range, which means that his power is going to be better. His endurance during the matches is going to be better, because when you cut weight as dramatically as Takamura has had to do in the past, your endurance really hits the floor. Your strength kind of pulls back just a bit, and we're going to get to see how powerful Takamura actually is once he gets closer to this weight class. That's why I don't think that Dragon is going to be a super difficult opponent. I'm hoping that he gives him a little bit of a challenge, since it is closer to his natural weight class. But I also want to see Takamura start to unleash this rage that is inside of him and unleash the beast, so to say. So let me know what you thought of this chapter down in the comments below. If you want more Hajime no Ippo related content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And for everyone new and old, welcome and welcome back. It's your boy Lohuli, and I will see you next video.